From translation, ISV International Standard Version. This 77th day of the year. Today we are reading passages, Judges 1 to 2. Judges chapter 1, verses 1 to 36. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, who should go up first for us against the Canaanites to fight against them. The Lord answered, Judah is to go up. I have handed the land over to him. Judah said to his brother Simeon, come up with me into my allotted territory, so we may fight against the Canaanites, and I will then go with you into your allotted territory. So Simeon went with Judah. Judah went up, and the Lord handed the Canaanites and Perizzites over to them, and they defeated them at Bezek. They defeated 10,000 men at Bezek. At Bezek they met Adoni-Bezek, and they fought against him. They defeated the Canaanites and Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they pursued him and seized him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off used to pick up food under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me. Then they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it. They put it to the sword and set it on fire. After this, the men of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who were living in the hill country, the Negev, and the western foothills. Judah attacked the Canaanites who were living in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath-Arba, and defeated Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. The former name of Debir was Kiriath-Sepher. Caleb said, whoever attacks Kiriath-Sepher and captures it, I will give my daughter Iksah to him as a wife. Othniel son of Caleb, Kenaz's younger brother, captured it, so Caleb gave his daughter Iksah to him as a wife. When she arrived, she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, what can I do for you? She said, give me a blessing. Since you have given me the land in the Negev, give me also springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up with the men of Judah from the city of palms to the wilderness of Judah, which was in the Negev near Arad. They went and settled among the people. Judah went with his brother Simeon, and they defeated the Canaanites who were living in Zephath, and they devoted it to destruction. So the city was named Hormah. Judah captured Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, along with their surrounding territories. The Lord was with Judah, and he took possession of the hill country, but he could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain because they had iron chariots. Hebron was given to Caleb, as Moses had said. So Caleb drove out the 3 sons of Anak from there. The Benjaminites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem, so the Jebusites have lived with the Benjaminites in Jerusalem to this day. Similarly, the house of Joseph went up against Bethel, and the Lord was with them. The house of Joseph spied out Bethel. The former name of Bethel was Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the city and said to him, show us how to get into the city, and we will treat you well. So he showed them how to get into the city, and they put the city to the sword, but they let the man and all his family go free. The man went to the land of the Hittites and built a city there, which he named Luz. That is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and its villages, or Taanach and its villages, or the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, or the inhabitants of Ibleam and its villages, or the inhabitants of Megiddo and its villages. The Canaanites persisted in dwelling in that land. When Israel became strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor. They did not, however, drive them out completely. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who were living in Jezer, so the Canaanites have lived among them in Jezer. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, or the inhabitants of Nahalol, so the Canaanites lived among them and became forced laborers. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko, or the inhabitants of Sidon, or Arlab, or Achzib, or Helba, or Aphik, or Rehob. So the Asherites lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh, or the inhabitants of Beth-Anath, but lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land. However, the inhabitants of Beth-Shemesh and Beth-Anath became forced laborers for Naphtali. The Amorites forced the Danites into the hill country. They did not allow them to come down to the plain. The Amorites persisted in dwelling in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shaalbim, but when the power of the house of Joseph increased, they became forced laborers. The border of the Amorites was from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah and upward. Judges chapter 2, verses 1 to 23. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you to the land I had promised to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you must not make a covenant with the people of this land. You are to tear down their altars. But you have not obeyed me. What is this you have done? Therefore I will no longer drive out any of them before you. They will become thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these words to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud. So they named that place Bochim, and there they sacrificed to the Lord. After Joshua had dismissed the people, the Israelites went to take possession of the land, each to his own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua, and throughout the lifetime of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great things that the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the territory of his inheritance, at Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who did not know the Lord or the work he had done for Israel. The Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. They served the Baals. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They followed other gods, the gods of the peoples who were around them. They bowed down to them and provoked the Lord to anger. They abandoned the Lord and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. The Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he handed them over to marauders who plundered them. He sold them into the hand of their enemies who were all around them, so that they could no longer withstand their enemies. Whenever they went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to bring disaster, just as he had sworn to them, and they were severely defeated. Then the Lord raised up judges, who delivered them from the power of those who plundered them. But even when the judges were there, they would not listen to them. They prostituted themselves to other gods and worshipped them. They quickly turned from the way in which their ancestors had walked, obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do as their ancestors. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, the Lord was with that judge, and delivered them from the power of their enemies all the days of that judge. For the Lord was moved to compassion by their groaning under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people would return to their ways even more corrupt than those of their ancestors, following other gods, serving them, and bowing down to them. They would not give up their evil practices or their stubborn ways. The Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he said, "Because this nation has violated my covenant that I made with their ancestors and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out any of the nations that Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel, to see whether they will keep the way of the Lord by walking in it as their ancestors did." The Lord had left those nations and had not driven them out immediately by Joshua.